could just ignore what you don't do, but I want better for me. You should too. Baby, show me love, don't treat me like a second option. You chose me. I could give you everything you want, but if you don't try for me, I won't, baby. Step by step, trying to give you hints. Open up your eyes, offer some empathy. Look at me from your driver's seat. Faces lit by LEDs, silence filled by money trees.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G, and I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WEMS Radio, bringing you spiritual conversations. I have different guests from different walks of life with different perspectives and pursuing many, many different careers. We come on in hopes of sharing with you stories and tools and tips to support you in creating your own spiritual world. I like to talk about spirituality from a practical perspective. How can you use it in everyday life? And as I've seen with the different guests, many people have many different spiritual practices that they use that support them. So we'll also talk about what's in our own personal spiritual toolkits and share different things that you can put into your personal toolkit. I just want to say that today we voted. Voting is now. I want to encourage everybody to get out to vote. And I know that there's a lot of anxiety right now around voting, and there's corona and things are going on. But be safe, make a plan to get your vote in. I just don't know how to stress how important it is for us to vote. So today, I'm really, really excited to bring Venus T. Wilder on as my guest. Venus is a musician, a physician, and an activist. So Venus is a Harvard trained physician who is now on a journey to being a Grammy award winning pop singer. And on that journey, Venus will share with us some of the tools she's using, some of the things she's gone through to get to this journey. I met Venus a few years ago. She's a part of my Law of Attraction group. So we interact with each other all the time. And I'm excited to be on this journey with her. And I'm excited for her to share with you her spiritual artistry awakening. So it's going to be a really great show. Welcome, Venus, aka V Tierra. Hey, Venus. She's coming in now. Hello.
Hey, Reverend G.
How are you?
Oh, no, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Let's see.
Okay. You can't hear me. You will. You know how it is. The show will go
Zoom,
on.
zoom, zoom.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. Right. You're looking at your settings. Now you're okay. You're not muted. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. Let me log out and log back on.
Okay, I'll keep talking, right? So I can share with you different affirmations and different ways that you can have spirituality be practical in your life. I do daily posts. You can find me actually on Instagram as Rev Granetta and on Facebook as Reverend Granetta Mason. I also have a YouTube channel, Reverend Granetta Mason. So if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more about creating your spiritual toolkit, more about the different practices that you can use to support you during these times, check me out. And also every Monday night. I like that when the different guests come on, they can share with you as where they are in their lives and how they've gotten there and what spiritual tools they've used. And what I appreciate is that no matter what your career is, no matter where your plans are, what your journey is, there's room to bring some spirituality into your life. So that's one of the reasons I do the show. Also is to support you and finding that place where if you need to heal, if you need support, mental health support, spiritual support, you can acknowledge that and find a place where you can go to get some support. So we're back.
We're back.
Hear me now? And you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, yay. It's always so good to just stay calm, right? And know that we'll work it out.
Amen.
So I introduced you and talked about, I think we're gonna talk about your spiritual artistic awakening, but there's just so many aspects to you. I talked about from Harvard trained physician to Grammy award winning pop singer. So introduce yourself and take us on a journey.
Yes. So hello, Granetta. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm so excited to just be here and be in conversation. So my name is Venus T. Wilder, and I am from Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Florida. I lived in New York for a long period of time, which is where I met Granetta. And since the time I've met Granetta, I've gone through so many changes. I was on my course went to medical school, went to Harvard for medical school, did my residency training in New York at Columbia, was doing medical director and director of this, married with my partner for 10 plus years, had a baby, and then everything, it just seemed in a matter of a night, just changed, went upside down. Wow. And basically I was headed to divorce. I made a decision and that changed my life because I was someone who had always thought that I followed the rules, that I did things in order, that, 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. Like, that's how I learned, like, when you do things, like, this is how it's supposed to happen. And that really threw me for a loop. I wasn't prepared for that. And I don't think I had the tools to really cope well. So I think that, if something traumatic happens to me again, I think I'll be in a much better situation and position to handle things that come up that are unexpected. But at that point, I did not have the tools, and that really just sent me in a spiral that had me everywhere.
I was going to say, I understand that, because what we do is, so I was like that too. So it's sort of like a scientific method. If you say do A, B, and C, it's going to equal D, right?
Yeah, so that's what we want.
So we follow this whole prescribed method. If I do this, it will equal this, and it will equal that. And so that's when we get on that road of just creating and moving. And it's interesting that at a point, it's just like this one thing. Now the divorce hit you, and it was like, oh no, that wasn't E, right?
Not me.
Right,
me?
Exactly right.
I just was groomed, like all my parents, my grandparents, everyone, like there is an order, and And I felt, especially in my family, like I having gone to like school, doing really good in school, like rising through rates, becoming a doctor, you know, the only doctor in the family. It was like, wow, like she, you know, she's doing it. And then all of a sudden it was just, so that was very, very difficult for me. And my sister always said, I'm the oldest of four, and my sister and I are 12 years apart. So she thanks me and my brothers, because she's like, you know, I've seen, like, I haven't had to experience as much because I've seen through you all what to do, what not to do. And one thing that she says to me that I think is interesting, her reflection for me is, I am a product of being in the school system for too long, where you, when you start, like, my world was like, you study this, you do this, this is the outcome. And I feel like a lot of, especially high achieving people or kids, you know, when you're used to getting certain outcomes, when a wrench comes into your plan, especially if it's a really big wrench and you haven't gone through things before, it can really throw you off. So I think that's really what happened.
When you said that you didn't have the tools, let's go back and talk about what was your spiritual upbringing, or because you went through school, you learned all this, so you had some tools, right? So it appears that there were other tools that you didn't have or that you hadn't developed over time.
Right.
So I was thinking that maybe we could talk a little bit about your spiritual upbringing and your spiritual life and how that impacted all of this and did or did not support you at the time the divorce hit you.
Right. So I grew up in a traditional Christian Black family. We belong to an African Methodist Episcopal church, an AME church. We didn't go to church every Sunday. We went to church a lot of Sundays. I was a part of Sunday school and a choir, and my grandmother was the one that was really big into making sure that she took us, and then my mother as well. But, you know, we went to different churches. So the churches that were most closest to us, the most convenient, that's usually where we ended up. Like, we had the home church, but then the one that was next to us was likely the one that we were going to. As far as like, you know, I would read my Bible, but it wasn't like a consistent part of my everyday practice or weekly practice. It felt more like it's a part of the routine. Like on Sunday, from 11 o'clock to 12:30, and hopefully not over, I go to church, and you know, like I pay my do my offering, do my tithes, then go home, eat my dinner. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how
Sunday, right? The typical Sunday, right?
The typical Sunday.
You eat, family, right?
Yeah. So that was the extent. Now I feel like I do, and I still do. And at the time, I had a relationship with Jesus, and with God, and I believed in like a higher order. But I think it was kind of shallow. It wasn't. It wasn't deep. It wasn't like knowing. It was kind of like when someone passes down a story to you and it's like secondhand, but you feel like you were kind of there.
Yeah.
Like that's right. Like you heard it enough, but you're like,
yeah. But not really understanding the real impact and what it really meant.
Right. Like a personal, like, and like God brought me through this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I had not experienced that. And when the time came, I think it was like my relationship with God and like understanding it supported me in some of the darkest times. But I needed more. I needed community.
Okay.
And I needed a community that was not just like Bible verses were great and was helpful, but I needed like practical, and I needed like a mindset shift, and I needed like the day to day, like if this thought comes to my mind, like how am I supposed to like address that thought? And, you know, like my thoughts are not me, right? So like the understandings of that I did not have based on, for me, for reading the Bible or going to church.
Right. From your training, right, and going to church and all of that. And I think a lot of us, we walk away and then we come back with a deeper understanding, right, and a better way of applying it to our lives, because that's what it's about. How can we be practical and use spirituality in a way that it helps us every day? So for instance, when the divorce happened, did you go to, let me grab all my spiritual practices, because maybe there weren't any right there that you knew could support you through?
Right. No, I didn't in that way. And so, and I didn't have like a routine. Like, I think that would have been helpful. Now that's something that I have developed now. Like what has helped me and what sustains me, like through like that episode and like the resulting, like I got really sick after, like with physical illness, emotional, like it was very tough. So just having to, like, now the things that I do now, like I make sure to like read my Bible. I try to do that on a daily basis. I don't just read, like I love like the verse of the day and then like thinking about that, or on the Bible app, there's like the different stories and like the questions and application. Like I'm someone in general that I do really well with like applying like that.
right.
Like that helps me to like understand. Also like expanded beyond that, but you know, you and my best friend Kristen, and y'all are really helpful with showing me like Abraham Hicks and like the law of attraction, like all these other aspects that I hadn't heard of before, but that helped to support my journey and added to the foundation that I already had. That gave me like day-to-day practical tools that I'm using and have incorporated.
Wow, that's really good, because I know that there's so many aspects to what you're doing. One thing I was interested in, you're a physician, you got really sick. What was that experience like, having to be the patient, right? All of it. I know there was a lot of everything going on, but can you talk a bit about what that experience was like as patient?
Oh, yes. I was talking to someone about it today. That I realized that this divorce, like, it sounds crazy. I would have never said this before. And people said this to me, like, when I was going through my process, I'm like, they're crazy. But it was a blessing, because it helped. It catapulted all of these experiences that I have had, including the illness. Like, I feel like, and God, I don't want anyone to get sick, but if anyone needs to get sick or like experience the healthcare system or experience being on the other side, it is those doctors, nurses, etc., people who serve, because not until you're really on the other side and dependent on the compassion, the intelligence, the empathy of the other side, you don't really get it. So to say, the summary of that is that illness, and I was pretty sick. Like, I left New York in a wheelchair. Like, my body had given out. I was done. I was tired. I needed help. It has made me definitely like a much, 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 much better doctor. Like exponential. Like, even today,
just the experience of it all.
The experience. And then also just going through a life experience, like a life-changing experience, like understanding that the mind and body and gut and all that is all related, right? And like the impact of stress, like how that can really impact your body and like wear you down. Like, like even today with the patient, I was able to, today she was telling me, and she's like, oh, people think I'm like crazy. Like, but I'm feeling this. And I'm like, I get you. I understand you were feeling this, you were experiencing it, but we really need to dig deep to see like what emotionally is going on with you that is causing some of these physical symptoms to manifest.
Wow.
And I think until you go through it yourself, it sounds like another language. It's like Chinese. Like you don't get it. You're not compassionate to it. It's not taught in school. It's just, it's one of those experiences you have to go through, I think.
Right. Empathy comes to mind until you can really put yourself in the person's place, experience it even emotionally, physically. That's when you really get it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
and it really opened my mind up too to alternative medicine. Like that is something that I wasn't even aware of until I went through my illness, where in like recovery process, where it wasn't about getting drugs, it wasn't about it was about like really understanding like the impact of food, the impact of like the environment, the impact of spirituality, the impacts of like acupuncture and like energy and meridians.
They don't teach that in medical school.
No, not at all. And people, if you look at it, like some of my colleagues, when I talk to them now, they just look at me because I don't talk about this. So, but I do with my patients. Like with my patients, I am very like aware of these things and really try to make that a part of like my 1, 2, 3, 4 before we go to a prescription. Let's not put a Band-Aid on a problem. Let's try to really figure out what's causing it and how we can actually heal. Like the goal is like wellness. Right.
Yeah, wellness, right? And we always talk about how food is very important, and to recognize that, because I know medical students. I even say I went to medical school, but they did not teach nutrition, because they did not teach nutrition.
No.
Right. It wasn't a big part of it. And as we know now, what you eat, you know how they used to say, you are what you eat, right?
Yeah.
And it is so big, right? And what came to my mind also is you talk about surviving versus thriving. So for me too, that's a big distinction, right? When you can get to surviving versus thriving, because with you went to Harvard, you're a doctor, you're a director, but talk about how you were surviving and now understand the difference between that and thriving.
Yes. So I honestly think that I have just recently, in the last couple of weeks, honestly.
Wow.
Transformation can be at any time, but I feel
at any time, whenever it's done.
It's brand new, so I'm still in the brand new thriving. The distinction, I feel like I was functioning, like after things happened, and even after I got better after let's say the divorce happened, I was like, after that, I was doing the city doc. I was all over New York, Harlem. I was and then I crashed. And then afterwards, it was just like getting back again, like surviving, just trying to like make it through the day, like emotionally, physically, mentally. Then I started work, and I'm also a single mother. Like my daughter is 5 now. So like navigating like motherhood as well, being in a new place. It just felt hard. And I was anxious a lot. And I feel like something, I don't know exactly what it is, but in the last couple of weeks, I have felt a lot less anxious. It's like I have finally sat in my body. Like I think that I have finally just accepted like what has happened, where I am, and the possibilities of the future. But I don't need to look to the future. I think that I've just become more present. Like now, this experience, me talking to you, me sharing my story, is all that there is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The past has happened. The
Right.
future may or may not happen, because something might happen right now where I'm not able to speak in the future,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So I think that I'm just like learning to just accept now and be present, and then do the best that I can, but don't kill myself in order to get something done, and that allows space and room for joy, for happiness, for thriving. And so I think that's the place I feel like much more calm. Like people have told me too, like, oh, okay.
Right. you were on the roller coaster. You were getting there. You know how we always talk about, I love what I'm hearing is enjoying the journey, being in the journey, not just like on there, just moving through it, but by being present to what's going on and being present in the journey, right?
Yeah.
And I like that. And I see how you've evolved to that place, right? Because you talk about like all the things that were going on at that time, you know, and even just like adding more things. So yeah, you were everywhere. You just kept adding things. And it took something to have you stop and check in, right?
Yes.
Really, it just like crashed and how you check in. So what was the transition like? So you were born in Florida, you went to Harvard, you lived in New York, now you're back in Florida, right?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about transitioning from New York City back to Florida and home.
It's been surprisingly really good. I thought it would be like a bigger adjustment, and I would just, but honestly, like, I could breathe.
And you got out for the whole thing, right?
I could like take a good breath in, and it's not like smoky, and I'm not smelling, you know what I mean? And then it's like a slower pace. Like I choose to make things faster here than it needs to be. But if I want to step back, hey, I can step back.
Yeah.
I love having a car. I didn't expect that.
Right, having a car.
I was so anxious about driving because I hadn't really driven a lot on the highways and all that for like a decade. But it's been good. It's my family's here. My family has been so supportive. Yeah, like I'm still in the business of like, not in the business, but I haven't really developed my own friend group here. So that's something that's like, right. But I do have a lot of friends that love to come to visit, which is beautiful.
Right? Everybody want to come to Florida.
Everybody want to come to Florida. We go to the beach. We have a good time.
Right.
But it's been good. I'm thankful. And it has allowed space for me to do music.
Yeah, I was kind of transition. It's like transitioning into this whole music, right? And where you are with music, it's really great and amazing, right? I would like to share your video with them tonight. One of them that I think is really important, and we could do it later because we're talking about voting, right? And the first video that you made, it was just so timely that it's so now, right? But were you a singer as a kid? Where was this talent, right?
Where did this come from?
Right, a doctor, and now
even my family, like they were like, "What? Are you serious? What?" My dad's still having an issue with it a little bit. He's like, well, I did love to sing growing up. And I did choir, I did chorus, and I remember making songs when I was a kid, like with the neighborhood girls and also at school. Like I really love songwriting, and I also love like being a star.
Never goes away, right?
It never goes away. I was trying to channel it in the medicine field, but I'm like, who am I entertaining? Like, there's one person in the room. So So it's true. Like, honestly, like I remember coming from work, oftentimes like after a shift and be like, walk down the street. I'm like, I can't believe I've been in this building all day, affected a couple of people in these rooms. Like, I'm supposed to be out talking to many people. And like, so that actually really is like a driving force for me, like, which is why I really love music, because you can impact so many people with one song, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can listen to it whenever they want to. And then you can choose to connect with them in a concert or now on social media. So it's much more in line with like that part of me. But yeah, the singing, I basically stopped singing around like middle school, because I would always get headaches when I was singing. So I didn't have proper technique.
Okay.
So I kind of let it go, but I would always kind of secretly write. Like I remember in residency, like after a shift, like I would listen to music and then I would like think about how I could change the words to be something that was positive and that, you know, would get a message across, but still be, you know, cool or like sound good. So that was kind of like a fun, like some people, you know, watch TV or play games. Like that would be like my little joy that I would do. And then my grandfather always kind of nurtured that part of me. I would sing when I was little. He was like basically my babysitter, like after school every day. And I would sing and he was like, V, you have such a unique voice. Like you really need to do something with that. And I would play piano. I also played clarinet growing up. But yeah, he was the one who like really loved my voice and encouraged that. But then I just kind of let it go. So because I was focused on other things. I was focused on going to medical school, working, being a wife, being a mama. And then when the divorce happened and things kind of just, you know, went up, I had to, I don't know, just something in me, like the words would come and it wasn't just good enough to put them on paper. It was like, I would have to like, it would just kept rising. And I remember one day I was outside of my parents' backyard and I just had this feeling that like it was just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, that I really needed to use my voice. And like I felt as if I did not use my voice, if I did not like let my words be known, if I didn't express myself in that way, I honestly felt like I was gonna die. Like it felt that intense. Like if you don't do this, you will not exist. You will die. And I felt like that was the changing point. Like I remember at that point I had to decide, are you going to live and be fully who you are? Or are you going to keep this like, you know, cocoon around you and never really be the V that you're supposed to be?
That's
so,
yeah. Because
so that was like the changing point for me.
Right. It reminds me of, that took a lot though, because first doctor, you know, in the family, the horror, you know, like this whole image of who you are. And then to be able to say, no, I did that, but who I really am is V. Tierra. And to be able to make that transition and be able to be that, it's commendable, and it still talks to who you are. Like the same way you went to do that, I feel you'll put the same energy, but different, because you now have the tools, as you said, and now being present, you'll be present to this journey to with your singing, right?
But I must say, yes, I must say too, as you were talking, I remember that what I described, that feeling, that was definitely a process. Like I remember being in New York and I was talking to someone and he was a singer. And I went to his show and like seeing him on stage, but it was the woman after him. That seeing her on stage like something, I just connected to her and I saw myself. And I remember walking up to her after and I was like, thank you so much. I'm like, you give me so much, like you're shining, your light. Like I see something. And I asked to go up on the stage. I took a picture that night too. I had a fur on. I went to the microphone and I just took a picture, like imagining singing.
Right.
And then that to me too was like oh wow, it was, see, at that moment I'm like, wow, this is something that I forgot that was a part of me. That like when I saw that person, it was like a mirror, like a reflection, like, oh, that's you, like that's what you really, because before, like you, my friend Kristen, I would always say to her like, oh, if I could if I died and came back, I would come back as a country music star. Like I would always say that to people.
Country music.
I mean, and I still really like country music, country pop.
I like country music too, right? You know, whenever we play that 3 lies in a game, I always throw, I like country music, and people think it's a lie, right?
It's true. I love country music. So, like, one day I'm gonna make my country pop song, but yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
But that was a very like pivotal point. And then I also remember I'm someone too that one of my gifts is dreams. Like I get dreams. Like I feel like that is the way in which God talks to me, and I get clarity. And I had a really significant dream where I saw in my dream that I was in a stadium, and it was a stadium full of women, and Beyonce was the main person, but I was what do you call it? Like an
opening act.
I was one of the opening acts, but at the point I didn't know it was music. Like I was there, and I was still kind of like in this doctor whatever mode. But I knew that's not why I was really there. And I remember in the dream, like it was like there's something else that you're supposed to give in this capacity, and it's not what you're given now.
Okay.
And then I was like, wow, I woke up from the dream and I'm like,
you know what's nice though is that you were able to step into it though. And that's the thing about being open to many possibilities, because had you stayed like locked in that was the way, you wouldn't have been able to experience the opening with this and the possibilities of having this be whatever you want it to be. So I like the part about dreaming because, with Abraham, she talks about daydreaming, right? And in the past, people will put a negative connotation on daydreaming. Are you daydreaming over there? But now we get to use daydreaming as a tool, right?
It's a positive.
Yeah,
definitely
more
positive.
as a positive than as something, oh, she's daydreaming again, right? But no, daydream, right? To have the life that you want to have, right?
Exactly.
I wanted to talk to you about COVID at this time. And how you're handling it, just being a doctor and in Florida where it's raging, how are you handling that?
It has been, initially it seemed very challenging because it was new, and just having to, develop protocols, and because at my job I see patients, but also when COVID first started, I was in charge of 3 of the offices at my healthcare organization, like 3 of the biggest Broward offices. So we had combined, and I was like managing staff and like trying to make sure that the environment was safe for patients, the staff, everyone. And honestly, I can say that our organization has been keeping people safe. I honestly feel very safe at work. I don't know if I'm not in a COVID frenzy, I know that a lot of people have been affected by COVID, and that is, it is a tragedy what has happened in our country. But I think if people take the precautions, and for us is, people come in, you take your temperature, right? Like, we want to make sure you're not sick. We ask the screening questions. If you're sick, we'll talk to you over the phone.
Right, exactly.
And we're strict with that because we're not trying to get people sick.
Right.
We maintain social distancing. We wear our masks when we're in the office. We have our cavity wipes. We wash our hands. We wear gloves. When I see patients, before I would do the whole donning and doffing of all the gown and all that. Now I just make sure I wear my mask. I have a shield on. When I go into the room, I always wear gloves when I'm interacting with the patient, and then I dispose of it. So
it's been okay for you. Yeah, right.
It's been okay. And the big thing though, for me, is that I take my vitamins every day. Multivitamin. I do my vitamin C when I'm not feeling well. Or a little off. I do my echinacea. I am infused every day with water. I eat healthy. I try to go to sleep on time. I really am
taking it seriously and
very seriously with that, and also for my daughter as well. My whole family.
Your beautiful baby girl. Being a parent, a single parent at that, right? I think about all the things you've done, and on top of that, raising beautiful little Nora,
Thank you.
and finding the time to, be with her. I was thinking about a part of that also is your creativity at this point is just exploding, right? And I know that one thing that's interesting for me is the spices, right? that you have. What's interesting about it is
I haven't put them out yet. I think I'm gonna put them out in November.
Oh, okay.
So to be
and it's interesting to think about you're combining your medical experience with the alternative, with all of that to create spices, right? To support people in staying healthy. The artwork that you do. So what I know about you is that there's this whole creative side, right? And do you think that has COVID enhanced your creativity or stifled it in any way? What would you say?
Definitely not stifled.
Right.
It has provided time.
Oh, all right, too.
Right? Although I've worked the entire time since COVID. I didn't have, sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I had the break that everybody else had.
Right. That break, right.
No, it wasn't great, but
that's cool.
But the world slowed down.
Yeah, the world slowed down.
The world slowed down. So I feel like the expectations slowed down.
But even for you, although you were going, everybody else was slowed down. So it slowed down everything for you. Right.
Yes.
That's cool. We get into some time. So I want to move to, because I know we could just talk for hours. What would you say are, at this point, your 3 spiritual practices? What would you share as the 3 go-to practices that you use? Because I talk about creating a spiritual toolkit, and many practices can go in the toolkit. And you've talked about some of the things you've overcome and your journey. What would you say would be your 3 go-tos?
My 3 go-tos, one is the Bible, and the verses and the teachings that are there. The second thing is I always try to, at least 5 out of the 7 days of the week, go on a walk and use that quiet time of the walk to really connect to God, to connect to myself, to connect to my body. That's really important to me. It really helps me manage stress and anxiety. And then the third thing I would say is, and then also on that walk, like prayer.
Okay.
And the third thing would be prayer, but I also think, what would be the third thing? I'm not very good with meditating. I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
Like slowing down is tough for me.
Meditation takes small doses, right? And if you think about it too much, it's really hard, right? But it's like any other practice, right? It's like any other practice. You'll figure out what works for you. Some people start with like guided meditations, right? And so with doing the guided meditation, it just starts to get you used to what meditation can be like and get you used to sitting, right? Because well, all the things that are going on, right? You figure, how do you quiet your mind? You do learn over time, and there are techniques, right? There are different techniques. But it takes practice, like everything. You just got to do it. It's not going to just be this magic thing. One day, Venus is going to be meditating.
The same thing with yoga. Oh,
yeah, you want to yoga too, right? But it's some work, right?
Oh, yeah. I would say the third probably is connecting to a community, like a spiritual community, because people are very important to me, like having connections and relationships. Like I thrive in that. So like I feel like that's one of the most the give and take, the love receiving in a community of people who are spiritually minded and are open and vulnerable. Like I think that is actually one of the biggest that really helps me and empowers me.
Yeah, I like that. What I want to do is, Venus also put together a group of women called the Powerful Women Collective, right? And we, our first event was about voting, and we were acknowledging Kamala Harris, and we were encouraging women to get out to vote. I want to play Venus's video that she did before all of this, right?
Yeah.
That
batter up.
Time came, as we went through it, it's just really timely. So I would like for you guys to see her video, Batter Up. We're going to get Prophet to play it for us. Are you there? You going to play it? I wanted to watch it with you, right?
Nice.
After you'll have a time to share, what would you like to share with anybody? So while we wait, we have some time for you to share. He's ready. So we're ready now to play the video. Here we go. It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sing this song all the time.
Yes.
Yes.
America. Home of the brave.
More American than apple pie. You think he got us caught up, twisted in his life. Presidential is what they say. Tweeting, twerking, causing chaos each and every day. But it's simple, ain't complex at all. You throw one, I hit it back, they call it baseball. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, politicking is what they say. We live and dying, but you lying, and it's not a game. It's not a game. It's not a game. We live and dying, but you lying, and it's not a game. Strike out. 1, 2, 3 defeated. Best believe it. We are through with you. Tear the wall down. it never forms. Home run, take a shot, call it health reform. Miss America, U.S. of A. She means to enjoy the movement each and every day. Put your guns down, is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up, put your guns down, is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up, put your guns down, is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up, put your guns down, is what they say. Batter up, put your guns down, is what they say. We live and dying, but you lying, and it's not a game. Diamonds in the rough, black, brown, and blue. Diamonds in the rough. Diamonds in the rough, red, yellow, white, two diamonds in the rough. Diamonds in the rough, black, brown, blue. Diamonds in the rough. Diamonds in the rough, red, yellow, white, two. Keep up 'em by the you fight, tell us homie, ain't nothing here from your brothers like I'm like the money. How you trying to get with it? 2020, that's the business. Got orange on the pallet, big bills, big ballot. Cause you're going through some things. Got Republicans saying, God bless America. Democrats beat their chest. Immigrants wear their vests. Everybody terrorists. Stocks up, better invest. What's the game that we play on World Series? Speaking Spanish, po-pos out here saying Kaepernick changed the game of independence. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, batter up, batter up. Politicking is what they say. We live and dying, but you lying. It is not a game. Politicking is what they say. Batter up, politicking is what they say. Batter up, politicking is what they say. Batter up, politicking is what they say. We live and dying, but you lying. It is not a game.
Yeah.
That's right. Batter up, batter up, batter up.
Right. What was the inspiration behind that, B?
Well, I made Batter Up in 2018. And that's when we were going through the midterm elections. And that's when I was home and recovering and had my CNN, MSNBC, Fox News on every day. And I just remember being like, this is crazy. Like, that's when the Kavanaugh hearing was going on and Me Too was in the height and Ferguson was going on. So I just was like, you know, we need to get people like inspired and motivated. Sorry, can you see me?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, we need to get people to be inspired and motivated to go out there and make change. We need to hold the people that are in charge accountable. And so that's the big thing with Batter Up. Like, I wanted to have like an anthem to get people motivated to get out there, to use their voice in order to make change. And especially now, like, this is the time that everyone's like, oh, I dropped. So I made the video, the song in 2018, made the video in 2018, and then just kept it because I wasn't yet ready to come out like musically. And then in the midst of like what happened recently with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I just went ahead and like decided to release the video in March. People were calling like, what are you waiting on? This is the time. So I put the video out and I hope that it inspires people to get out and vote, not to just vote, but to take an active stand in the process of making this world a more just place, because we all deserve to have an amazing, wonderful life, regardless of what your skin looks like, where you live, what you were born into, your sexuality, etc. Like, we all are God's children.
Right. We all get to go. We all matter. Right.
Yes.
So what's next for you? And, you know, tell people where they can find you and follow you and what's next.
So what's next for me is I am dropping, I pray tonight, the lyric video for Batter Up, so that people can really like see the words and share it, so that we get people motivated to vote, because this election is critical.
Yes.
What else is up? In November, I'm planning on really launching my spices. So it's called Aunt Alberta's Spice House. And basically, it's organic spice blends designed by yours truly, based on research on what I have 3 main flavors now and that help with chronic diseases. So I have one for blood pressure. It's called Pressure Blend. I have another one that's for arthritis or anti-inflammatory. It's called Groove Thing. And the other one is is in order to help prevent diabetes and reduce your sugar if you do have diabetes. And that's called Sugar Drop. So I'm planning to put that out in November. So look forward to that. To follow me, you can follow me on Facebook, v.tiara, Tiarra. And then on Instagram is v.tiara and _. So I'm super excited. This journey, I'm so thankful. Like I feel so thankful to have this like second chance, honestly, to live my life in a very authentic way. And I feel like I have my light back.
Yes. Wow. Thank you.
I have my light and my life back.
Yes. Yes. It's shining. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I know you'll take off and do it. So looking forward to the Grammy party. Okay.
Yes, I really want to. That's like my goal. Like, I'm like, I really want to win a Grammy. Like, I love songwriting. Like, I would love to just be, that would be like the mountaintop for me.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Right.
Thank you,
we're following you. Have a great day.
Good night.
Good night. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on Conversations with Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night on WEMS radio from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And generally, I talk about a mindful moment, and a mindful moment is when we take a break and we breathe. And we take a moment to get present, and getting present is really important because we want to be present in our lives. And so thinking about what we talked about tonight, I was thinking about surviving versus thriving is a very, very interesting concept. So in your mindful moment, just think about, what would it look like to thrive as opposed to survive? And some of us are thriving and continuously thriving, and some are surviving, looking for that way to thrive. So it's one of those things to talk about. I think it's very powerful to look at and shift to this perspective of thriving. So it's Reverend G, and I will see you next week. And you can see me every day on Instagram as Rev Granetta and Facebook as Reverend Granetta Mason. So have a great, great week, and I'll see you next week.